Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Looking at revisiting the SS Politician. It's precisely 83 years, actually, since the historical event which inspired the book and the film of Whiskey Galore, but the true story of the sinking of the SS Politician is even more remarkable than the fictional tale. 83 years ago, on the morning of the 5th of February 1941, during the war years, the SS Politician was heading north past the Scottish Outer Hebrides, having cast off from Liverpool 2 days earlier. Its final destinations, well, Kingston, Jamaica, and New Orleans. After passing the Isle of Man, the weather had worsened, the winds had risen to gale force, and the ship's captain, Beaconsfield Worthington, changed course as a result. Now, this was an unwanted distraction and difficulty for a crew anticipating a winter crossing of a U-boat-infested Atlantic Ocean. Then things got considerably worse. As the winds drove the SS Politician further off course, at 7:40 a.m., a lookout glimpsed land. In desperation, the ship swung away, only to founder on unseen sandbanks off Rosnish Point on the Isle of Eriskay. Events moved quickly after that. The ship's fuel tanks were ruptured, its engines gave up minutes later, leaving the crew to await rescue and salvage of their precious cargo. To the locals, beset by the deprivations of war and rationing, well, this was too good an opportunity to miss. Unofficial local, shall we say, salvage parties began to form, with men and some of them even donning their wives' old dresses to prevent their own clothes from becoming stained by incriminating ship's oil. Well, the SS Politician was carrying all manner of trade goods, from cotton to medicines to biscuits, bicycles, but the ship is best remembered for the contents of hold number 5, which was some 264,000 bottles of Scotch whisky. That landing on a Hebridean island, oh my goodness. Well, they came from far afield, as the Isle of Lewis, and according to reports at the time, few, if any, regarded what they were doing as stealing. The foundering of the ship made its cargo theirs to save under the rules of salvage. Quite right, too. Well, the authorities, however, didn't share this view, not least because the whisky was destined for the United States, so no excise duty had been paid on it, so they wanted their crust of money out of that. There followed a second attempted land-borne salvage operation, with the police raiding villages and crofts in an effort to recover the liquid cargo and the locals secreting their ill-gotten gains wherever they could, under floorboards and water tanks, under rocks, buried in the sand on the beaches, and even hidden under the eaves of their homes. Many of the locals who enjoyed the amber nectar simply just drank them. I mean, why not? Some of the salvagers, however, ended up in court, and with a few even having to serve short jail sentences, probably to sober up. But many of the estimated 24,000 bottles of whisky salvaged from the wreck by the islanders were never actually seen again. Government excise men, along with the local police, searched the island homes and crofts for the missing whisky. Their searches proved to be spectacularly unsuccessful, with only 2 cases of whisky actually being found. Now, this was due in part to the strong religious beliefs on the Western Isles of not working on a Sunday. And the local policeman, as respected pillars of the community, were, of course, expected to respect the laws of the Sabbath and not work, thus allowing time for the locals to move the whisky and other salvage goods to better hiding places all around the island. An official salvage operation was mounted by a Glasgow company with the aid of their salvage ship under the command of Captain Edward Lauriston. The salvage crew managed to bring out 13,500 cases of whisky and 3 full casks from the wreck. Several eyewitnesses later said that the salvers helped themselves to the whisky whenever they wanted and returned to their billets in Eriskay and South Uist with the bottles and actually share some of it with the islanders themselves. As official salvage operations were called off, the ship's hull was dynamited to destroy any further temptation to explore its contents. But the odd bottle was still washed up on nearby beaches, and a local diver even found 8 bottles of whisky in the wreck as recently as 1987. The 2 of these were sold for just over £12,000, which is about $15,000, $16,000 by the Scotch whisky auctions in 2013. So far, so familiar. It's obviously a romantic yet true tale, and one which inspired the 1947 book Whisky Galore by Compton Mackenzie, who had himself actually lived on the Isle of Eriskay for a while. And the 1949 film of the same name, directed by Alexander McKendrick, and one of the most enduring and loved of the Ealing comedies, which bizarrely retitled Tight Little Island in the United States. Strange name. But an arguably even more intriguing aspect of the SS politician story remained unknown to all but a few until some 60 years after the event. According to documents from the Crown Agents released by the Public Records Office in 2001, hold number 5 didn't just contain whisky, it also held 290,000 10-shilling and £1 notes, destined for the then colony of Jamaica. In other words, about £300,000, or in modern terms, several million pounds worth. At first, the authorities were not hugely concerned. They were much more focused on recovering the missing whisky, which they were very aware of being like liquid gold to the islanders. The 8 cases containing the money were first reported to be covered in fuel and water, then presumed swept away by the seas. At one point, the head of the salvage operation was said to have given away a few as souvenirs. Even some of the island children were found to be playing with the water-stained banknotes. Then reports filtered through of some of the notes being found on the island of Benbecula, 25 miles to the north of the wreck site. Now, this was potentially more worrying, but even if the islanders had got their hands on some of the money, what would they spend it on? I mean, in the Outer Hebrides of tiny little islands, during wartime? By June 1941, 4 months after the SS politician's demise, branches of the Barclays and Midlands Bank in Liverpool in England began reporting the presentation of water-damaged Jamaican 10 shillings and £1 notes. Then by 1943, the notes had actually turned up in London across the south of England, in Stoke-on-Trent and into the north of Scotland. So by 1958, the Crown Agents had made a final tally of the 290,000 notes. 211,267 had been recovered. So 2,329 had been presented in banks all over the world, including the United States, Switzerland, Ireland, Malta, and of course in Jamaica. And the agents estimated about 2/3 of these had actually been presented in good faith. Yeah, right. That leaves 76,404 notes, or about £50,000 worth, unaccounted for, along with maybe 24,000 bottles of whisky, not to mention the rest of the ship's cargo. How much was taken by the sea, and how much fell prey to impromptu salvage operations mounted by the locals of Eriskay and Barra and North and South Uist, Lewis and Harris? Well, we'll almost certainly never know. Suffice to say, there were some very happy faces on the good people of the Western Isles, and some fine tales of daring salvage and creative dodging of customs and excise men. Around 1995, I met a charming elderly lady with a melodic, lilting Hebridean accent who'd lived on Eriskay at the time of the SS politician's foundering on the rocks. She told me of some of the characters on the island who had been involved in shall we say, liberation of some cases of whisky to save it from the ravages of the Atlantic. As she reminisced of that fateful night, she rummaged in her purse and took out a neatly folded piece of paper, which she carefully unfolded and handed to me to inspect. It was an aged piece, elaborately printed with blue-grey ink, proclaiming, "Government of Jamaica, £1."